Bioaccumulation is when organisms at the bottom of the food chain, absorb substances like chemicals. They absorb chemicals. What then happens is those organisms are consumed up the food chain. These chemicals build up as they go through the food chain. As the next consumer eats more of that organism, it means they eat more of that chemical that's been absorbed within that population. So that can then lead to in organisms that weren't initially part of the absorption, but they've absorbed it by proxy through other animals, is it can cause birth defects and illnesses, such as disrupting hormones and things like that. So that's what we mean by bioaccumulation. Now, just finished looking at water pollution. Deposition of harmful substances into rivers, lakes and the sea from sewage, fertilizers and chemical waste are examples of pollution. Sewage encourages the breeding of harmful bacteria that can cause diseases such as cholera or dysentery. Now, where would you find, for example, these to be more common? They might be common in places with without clean water supplies. You think maybe more third world countries. Now, fertilizers cause eutrophication, the rapid production of algae, which then goes on to block out light for other plants in lakes and ponds, ultimately damaging the ecosystem. These fertilizers can also cause bioaccumulation as well. Chemicals can be toxic, kill, and corrosive. They can dissolve and are generally harmful. So remember, this idea is that simply if you're blocking out the light, decreases photosynthesis, which means the plants are more likely to die and organisms that eat them are more likely to die as a result of not having a food source. And partly as well, because you've got less photosynthesis, also you've got a decrease in oxygen levels, an increase in temperature, and as well as not having a food source, the habitability of an ecosystem decreases as well. Right, good. So we've had gone through those. So now a chance for an application. So what I'd like you to do now is pause your video and have a look at this next question. See what you can do with it, and then we'll go through it. So as it says, explain why there is a difference in the level of biodiversity between rainforest regions and agricultural land. So this question should actually be 3 marks. So before you pause it, you are looking for 3 points. Okay? Right. Hopefully you've had a go. Let's go through it now. So, first point. If we bear in mind, rainforest has got high biodiversity. Agricultural land has got low biodiversity. Right. Why? What's the difference? So on agricultural land, what has happened is if you've removed trees, you've removed habitats. So you might have fewer species. And as a result of that, you might also have fewer food sources for other species, because if you've got less, there's less other there are fewer other species to be eaten. So that's going to decrease your biodiversity straight away. So what you've then done is you've also left smaller populations who have fewer resources to rely on, more open or more at risk of dying out. So it gives you some ideas as to the differences between those two. What's the differences? Rainforest is high. Why is agricultural land low? It's low because you've removed the trees, and if you remove trees and plants, you've removed habitats for organisms to live in, so you might have fewer species. If you've got fewer species, that might also mean you've got fewer food sources, species available for other organisms to eat. And if you've got smaller populations, then as a result, they have fewer resources to be able to survive off, so they're more likely to die out. Good, well done. Right, on the next task, you'll see where it's talking about indicators and rainwater. It is a practical task with some application knowledge questions. You can't do this within a remote lesson. So if you could just put that to one side and focus now on just some of the application questions based on this lesson, please. So have a go, have a look at the application questions, and then we will go through them to finish. So pause the video, have a go, and then we will go over them to finish. Right, 2 types of pollution: air and water. 2 pollutant gases, let's say sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. Suggest what produces these gases and their effects. Car exhausts, burning of fossil fuels, more car exhaust and sulfur dioxide can lead to more acid rain. More carbon dioxide from burning fossil fuels can lead to more global warming. State the biggest cause of pollution increase in recent years: the burning of fossil fuels. What's the approximate pH of rainwater and acid rain? Normal water is around pH 7. Acid rain is less than pH 7. Describe the effects of acid rain on buildings, especially limestone. Can corrode and wear away. Suggest 2 ways water can be polluted. It can be polluted through fertilizer use and the use of sewage, and the giving off of sewage. Now, suggest how the use of herbicides can reduce biodiversity and kill off pests. So there are fewer species. Good. Then, last couple of questions. Herbicides and fertilizers are used by farmers to control the growth of weeds and encourage the growth of crops. The use of these chemicals has rapidly increased since the 1950s. Suggest why use has increased and describe the benefits and risks of using these chemicals. So the simple fact is, benefits for controlling the growth of weeds means you've got improved food growth in production. And as we've discussed, more fertilizers are used can cause eutrophication. And you've also got the lead to decreasing biodiversity, which damages your ecosystem. Good. As the human population continues to grow, so will the waste they produce. Explain the problems of using landfill as a solution to the increase in waste and suggest alternative solutions. Now, landfill is where you dig a big hole and you throw your rubbish in it and bury it. More people means more waste. Eventually, you're going to run out of space. Could run out. That's why it's not a continuous viable option. So you've got two alternative solutions with waste. Combustion and combusting of it, burning it, causes pollution, but gets rid of it. Or recycling. You do your recycling each week. Your bottles are taken away, they're smashed up, they're then sorted and melted back down into new products. So those are your two alternative solutions, because with landfill, you're simply going to run out of space. Then to finish, describe how increases in human population and the waste they produce can affect biodiversity. So if you think about waste, you've got things like sewage, fertilizers, greenhouse gases, landfill. How do each of these affect biodiversity? We said fertilizers, eutrophication, greenhouse gases causes release of is the release of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide. You've got things like acid rain, you've got things like global warming. Sewage is pollution, killing off of species. Landfill can be the release of toxic chemicals. All of these processes can therefore kill off species and reduce biodiversity. Good. So that's the end of this lesson on human impacts of biodiversity.